salt in the wind. A war cry echoed across icy seas. They came from the north, fearless and relentless. But were they really just wild raiders? Or is the truth far more complex and far more fascinating? Today, we explore the untold world of Viking warriors. Not just how they fought, but how they lived, trained, believed, and endured. Because their story isn't only about conquest, it's about honor, resilience, and a code that shaped empires. The image of the Viking is iconic. Horned helmets, wrong, roaring battles, burning villages. But beyond the myths lies something deeper. Vikings thrived on the sea, survival, and tradition. They were farmers, blacksmiths, poets. But when needed, they became warriors. What made someone a Viking warrior? What did they value? What did they worship? And what drove them to sail into the unknown? To answer that, we step aboard their longships and into the heart of Norse culture. The making of a warrior. In Viking society, life was demanding from the start. Children grew up facing nature's extremes. They learned to endure, adapt, and defend. Training was constant: wrestling, hunting, rowing, axe throwing. It wasn't for sport. It was part of life. Elders told sagas that shaped identity and expectations. Honor meant everything. Cowardice was rejected. Facing challenges with strength was the goal. Young men often tested themselves in local conflicts. When the time came, even boys stood with seasoned fighters. Their reward wasn't just survival. It was reputation, respect, and a place in the stories passed down for generations. Tools of war, weapons and armor. Viking warriors didn't rely on fancy gear. Everything they used was practical, handmade, and deeply valued. The axe was common, versatile, and efficient. Some tools served both daily life and combat. Swords were rare and treasured. Often inscribed with runes, they symbolized heritage and pride. Spears were useful both near and far. Shields were essential, round, wooden, rimmed with iron. They were used both for protection and information. Helmets without horns and armor, if available, completed their gear. But the key was mindset. Vikings used strategy, speed, and terrain to their advantage. They struck quickly and vanished just as fast. They weren't chaotic. They were calculated. Viking raids. Truth versus myth. It began in 793 CE, when a Viking ship appeared off the English coast. The event shocked Europe and launched the Viking Age. For over 200 years, Viking expeditions stretched from Ireland to Russia. But not all Vikings were raiders, and not all raids were destruction. Many expeditions involved trade, settlement, and diplomacy. They opened routes, founded towns, and influenced cultures across continents. Their secret weapon, the longship. Agile, shallow, and fast, it let them reach far inland and escape just as fast. Much of the fear came from efficiency and unpredictability. To the outside world, they brought chaos. To themselves, they were pursuing opportunity. Code, culture, and the warrior spirit. The heart of a Viking warrior was belief. They honored gods like Odin, Thor, and Freyja. These deities were part of daily life and guided decisions. Falling in combat was seen as noble. The chosen would be led to Valhalla, where they'd train for the final battle at the world's end. But it wasn't just about conflict, it was about legacy. Runes were carved, sagas told. To be remembered was everything. Women also played strong roles. Some legends speak of shield maidens. Viking women had rights rare in that era: land, divorce, leadership. Their values were clear. Keep your word, protect your kin, uphold your honor. They were more than warriors. They were builders, storytellers, and community leaders. Legacy. Across the seas. Viking warriors may have vanished from the battlefields, but their influence never truly disappeared. Across Europe and beyond, traces of their journeys remain, in language, in law, in place names, and in bloodlines. Cities like Dublin, York, and Kiev were shaped by Viking hands. Trade routes they opened became the backbone of medieval commerce. Technologies they carried spread across continents. Even after the Viking Age ended, their descendants became kings, explorers, and settlers. Some blended into the cultures they once challenged. Others forged new nations altogether. But the warrior spirit remained, passed not through weapons, but through ideas. The drive to explore, the will to endure, the belief that life is measured not by its length, but by its impact. Viking legacy was never confined to Scandinavia. It crossed oceans just like they did, and it still speaks to us today. The world of the Viking warrior is far richer than the stories of raids and conquest suggest. It's a world built on resilience, loyalty, tradition, and an unshakable belief in fate and legacy. These warriors weren't just fighters. They were navigators, craftsmen, poets, and dreamers. They ventured beyond the edges of the known world, not only to survive, but to leave something behind. A mark, a memory, a name. They believed that deeds, not words, made a life worth remembering. That honor was earned through action, and that the greatest tragedy was not death, but being forgotten. And yet centuries later, we still speak their names, still study their ships, read their sagas, and imagine the world through their eyes. Because something about their story endures. Maybe it's the courage to set sail into the unknown. Maybe it's the idea of standing for something greater than yourself. Or maybe it's the reminder that even in the harshest times, a strong spirit can carve history into stone. Clearing away the myths, what remains is a legacy of power, discipline, and vision. One that speaks to something universal, the human will to endure, explore, and define one's place in the world. And if this journey through their lives gave you a new perspective, don't let it end here. Subscribe for more untold stories, ancient secrets, and forgotten truths that shaped our world.